The infinite spiritual power of the earth element went berserk at this moment. Powerful and astonishing auras continued to circulate in the sky above the city of chaos. The terrifying spiritual power pressed down. In everyone's shocked eyes, one after another, earth laws like long rivers fell from the sky and washed into Archimedes' body. These long rivers of laws are like a big river pouring down from the sky. Combined with the thick earth element calamity clouds in the sky, it gives people an unspeakable shock. Endless spiritual power continued to wash into Archimedes' body. In everyone's perception, the aura in Archimedes' body continued to rise, like a weak flame, burning continuously, and then became a huge fire. Seeing such a scene, Jason, who was originally preparing to take action, also slowed down the flow of spiritual power in his body, and looked at Archimedes in the sky with a smile on his face. Jason was not surprised at all by Archimedes' promotion. Half a month ago, when Loken took the Emperor-level elixir he prepared to advance, Archimedes, although he did not advance with him, had already reached the peak of the 7th level advanced level, and there was a possibility of advancement at any time, and this for 2 days. As he continued to prepare 7th level imperial elixirs, Archimedes also kept accumulating. Now he taught himself the body-refining exercises of the medicine tribulation, and then broke through the shackles in the process of overcoming the medicine tribulation. It was a matter of course for him to advance to the 8th level as an emperor spiritual master. In fact, even if Archimedes did not advance during the medicinal tribulation, it would not take more than a month or 2 at most. He only needed to realize it by chance once, and Archimedes could advance to the 8th level emperor on his own. The spiritual master. Jason is full of confidence in this point. After all, Archimedes was a 9th level Holy Spirit master and a holy medicine master in his previous life. If even the 8th level emperor spiritual master is stuck and unable to advance, then there would not have been such great achievements in the previous life. In this world, there are too many spiritual masters who are stuck in the 8th level imperial spiritual master realm, but there are always some geniuses who are unique, and Archimedes is definitely one of them. In everyone's eyes, endless earth spiritual elements poured into Archimedes' body like a torrent, increasing his strength. At the same time, under the bombardment of the heaven and earth medicine calamity, Archimedes' the severely injured body slowly healed. Finally, the laws of heaven and earth shining with aurora slowly dissipated, and in the sky, Archimedes opened his eyes in an instant. Boom! At the same time, the medicine calamity of heaven and earth, which had not completely dissipated, was aimed at Archimedes' location again and bombarded it down. The earth-yellow medicine calamity fell from the sky. The moment it was about to hit Archimedes, Archimedes shouted loudly. Astonishing spiritual power rose. The Taiwa sword in his hand flew out like lightning, and the medicine calamity dropped from the sky. Crashed together. Poison. The world shook, the void collapsed, the air trembled silently, and shattered like a mirror. In the sky, Archimedes' body shook slightly, and streams of earth's spiritual power exuding terrifying energy were constantly beating on the surface of Archimedes' body, making violent crackling sounds in the air, almost filling the air. It was a blast. The powerful and astonishing Yaojia instantly collapsed and was shattered into pieces. Archimedes, who was struggling to hold on under the 8th level medicine calamity before, was on the verge of collapse, and might die at any time. Now, after being promoted to the 8th level Emperor Spirit Master, he is extremely brave, like a demon god, in charge of the sky. Okay. Seeing this scene, Jason was completely relieved. This heaven and earth medicine disaster could no longer pose a threat to Archimedes. Sure enough, the medicine calamity continued to crash down, but Archimedes was extremely brave. After a moment, the terrifying medicine calamity of heaven and earth dissipated, and Archimedes also landed in the courtyard. Senior brother, congratulations! Luoquan was the first to laugh. Archimedes, well done. Renault also smiled. Reagan and others also spoke out one after another, with a hint of envy and fanaticism in their eyes, and blood in their chests. An 8th-level Emperor spiritual master may be nothing to people with great backgrounds like Jason and Wayne. They can always be seen on weekdays, but for people like Reagan, there has never been an 8th-level emperor in thousands of years. For those who were born and raised in the chaotic territory of the spiritual master, there was an unspeakable shock in their hearts. At this time, Reagan couldn't help but remember that after Jason and Reno killed Herbert and others, he resolutely made the decision to surrender to each other. At that time, it even aroused criticism from many people in the City of Chaos. Now that he thinks about it, this decision is actually, it's so correct. On the side, Wayne looked at this scene with a faint smile on his lips. This young man, who didn't look that big, was always like that, able to make those who followed him feel at ease. Father, now that the elixirs that need to be prepared have been prepared, I am going to go to the death maze again tomorrow. Jason said to Renault. You want to go to the death maze? Renault was startled. Yes. Jason nodded. Jason had always been concerned about the Jintong Palace and the Divine Medicine Palace back then. Especially the Palace of Divine Medicine. Because of his strength, Jason saw a mysterious formula in the elixir laboratory, but he failed to look carefully because of the oppression of his soul. Now, Jason's strength having greatly improved, he wanted to see what was written in that formula. Moreover, Lan Yugusan also said that he woke up in the Divine Medicine Palace. Jason also wanted to re-enter the Divine Medicine Palace to see what was inside. What clues are there? Beside, Wayne's eyes also lit up. After he came to the territory of chaos, he heard Gilroy talk about the spiritual treasure. In these days, he also understood what the so-called spiritual treasure was, and Jason also told him about it. His experience back then, and now that he heard that Jason was going to this death maze, Wayne was suddenly filled with excitement. This time I go to the death maze. Father, Wayne, Loken, and Aumide, the 4 of you will go with me. As for the others, they will stay in the City of Chaos. After all, there are no requirements for the 7th-level Imperial Spiritual Master inside. It is still full of dangers. Reagan, Gandalf, and Maria, while we are away, you will be solely responsible for the affairs of the territory of chaos. Jason ordered to Reagan and others. Yes, Lord Jason. The 3 of them spoke respectfully, without the slightest objection to Jason's arrangement. Although the temptation of the spiritual treasure is great, for Reagan and the others, it is not a big deal. Back then, Reagan and the others also entered the death maze, the mansion of the god-killing Nadim. In the end, risking a narrow escape, Reagan, who was a 7th-level low-level Imperial spiritual master at that time, only got a Shinpin spirit from there. The weapon Dragon Flame Sword, while Daimler got the low-grade Earth-grade protective spiritual weapon Hornwood Armor, and Herbert got a volume of low-grade Moon-grade light-based skills. These things were extremely precious to Reagan and the others back then, but now, the territory of chaos has developed so rapidly under the leadership of Jason that almost everyone has a bottle of even the 7th-level Imperial elixir. Let them continue, for these things, it is not worth the gain to go through the maze of death where one is likely to fall. The next day, the 4 Jasons, led by Renault, left the City of Chaos and flew towards the Cloud Swamp in the south of the territory of chaos at high speed. And when Jason and the others went to the death maze in the Cloud Swamp, the main city of Sin City. This is an extremely majestic city, like a mountain, lying in the south of the mainland. The entire city is hundreds of feet high. Looking from a distance, there is a suffocating sense of oppression. At this moment, in a magnificent palace in the deepest part of the city, 4 strong men with amazing spiritual power on their bodies were sitting on the seats at the bottom of the palace. Gilroy looked extremely depressed. He is among them. Haha, Gilroy, who beat you like this? To make you so embarrassed? Is this the famous South City Lord Gilroy of our Sin City? In the main hall, a man with a rough appearance and a flame mark on his brow was seen. The man laughed loudly. His eyes were like 2 scorching suns in the sky, giving people an unspeakable feeling of violence. As he laughed, the laws of fire elements quietly appeared in the air of the hall, and then disappeared, as he spoke. "Humph, Garfield, shut up." After hearing this man's words, Gilroy's face turned pale and he snorted coldly. "Hey, you still have a bad temper." The red-haired man laughed. "What? Do you still want to attack me? If it were before, I would have hesitated, but now, look at how cowardly you are. TSK, you still have such a bad temper. No wonder it was repaired, haha." Gilroy gritted his teeth and clenched his fists, but he couldn't say anything. "What am I?" "Gilroy, don't you admit it?" "To tell you the truth, when I heard the news that you had been severely beaten, I rushed from Beijing nonstop just to see that face of yours. Among the 4 major cities in our Sin City, no one has ever been as embarrassed as you. Campbell, are you right?" The red-haired man turned his attention to an old man in black robes whose face was buried in a cloak. "Garfield, don't involve me in the matter between you and Gilroy." A cold voice that made people's skin crawl all over came from the cloak, giving people an endless sense of evil and panic. "Okay, please stop saying a few words. After all, Gilroy is also the lord of the South City of our Sin City. He was repaired outside, and it was also the shame of our Sin City." The remaining Ching Pao among the 4. The old man spoke up. Boom. At this moment, 2 terrifying pressures suddenly appeared in the hall, and immediately, 2 figures with shocking auras appeared in the dark place in front of the hall. "I have met the 2 wives of the Deputy City Lord." After a pause, the 4 people in the hall stood up. After the 2 figures appeared, they did not walk out of the dark place in front of the hall. Instead, they stood on both sides of the front and then bowed. A tall, majestic figure that shocked the heavens and the earth suddenly walked out of the dark void, and a majestic aura instantly filled the entire hall. The astonishing pressure dissipated, giving people an extremely shocking and heart-pounding feeling. The 4 branch city lords who were arrogant and flamboyant before, with different expressions, at this moment, as if they were seeing the marshal's soldiers, bowed down, lowered their heads, their expressions were serious, and their eyes were full of respect. "Subordinate, pay homage to the Lord of Sin. This majestic figure is the City Lord of Sin City, one of the 9 major forces in the mainland, the Lord of Sin. Today is still 1 chapter, and I owe you 2 chapters. I will start making up the debt tomorrow. I took a car for a whole day, starting at 8 in the morning. Because I had to change trains several times, I didn't get home until 4 in the afternoon. I got home, but the little teacher was not happy. The grandfather of my primary school girlfriend's girlfriend had a stroke last month, but because she was taking postgraduate entrance exams, her family didn't tell her until she got home. Grandpa is now paralyzed on the bed, confused, unable to speak, unable to defecate, and he doesn't even recognize his girlfriend. Because he has been lying down, the skin on his body is rotten, pus keeps leaking. My girlfriend is very sad, and Xiaoshur doesn't know how to comfort her. She originally went home happily to celebrate the new year, but now Xiaoshur thought of the winter vacation when Xiaoshur first wrote Star Soldiers traveling to another world at Qidian. Xiaoshur's grandmother passed away on New Year's Eve, and that year was really painful. I hope everything is well with my loved ones, and I hope all my brothers and sisters can have a good new year. I hope I can come back to see my parents and relatives more often when I have time. Relatives, you really need to cherish them. The Lord of Sin is the ruler of Sin City, one of the 9 major forces in the mainland. His status is like that of the Lord of the Twin Towers, the Holy Lord of the Holy Lands of the 4 Empires, and the most pinnacle existence in the entire continent, standing proudly on the mainland. Gilroy, what is going on? As soon as the towering figure appeared, a rumble came from the hall. Gilroy and others present felt as if they were trapped in endless oppression. The powerful pressure made everyone hold their breath and dare not take a breath. In the dark void, a pair of eyes that encompassed everything in the world stared at Gilroy and the others below the hall. Lord of Sin Gilroy immediately took a step forward, his expression was full of respect, and his eyes were full of solemn words. The thing is like this. Immediately, Gilroy took the slime. He went to the territory of chaos, fought with Jason and the others, was finally defeated by Wayne and escaped, and the death of Jeremy and others were told in detail without reservation. In front of the Lord of Sin, the Lord of Sin City, Gilroy, a 9th-level low-level Holy Spirit Master, did not dare to hide anything. Humph. After listening to Gilroy's narration, a cold snort came from the mouth of the towering figure. A pressure so powerful that it was difficult to resist instantly fell on Gilroy, and the rumbling voice resounded through him. In the ear, Gilroy, you are so brave to attack the Chaos territory privately. Have you forgotten the regulations of the 9 major forces? Bang! Under the pressure of this terrible pressure, Gilroy Eg shook violently, his face was filled with fear, and he knelt down with a thud. Lord of Sin, I just heard about the legendary spiritual treasure. I was curious and wanted to find out for Yaren first. I hope you will forgive me. Please forgive me. Gilroy's face was full of fear, trembled. In front of the Lord of Sin, he, a strong man who could be majestic anywhere on the continent and reach the top, was like a lamb in front of a lion, unable to resist at all in his heart. Humph, Gilroy, you attacked the Chaos territory without authorization, causing our Sin City to lose 3 8th-level peak-level guardians. You even used the Spirit Forbidden technique, which greatly damaged your strength. Since it was your first offense, now, for the time being, I will deprive you of your identity as the City Lord of South City, and you will enter the abyss prison of our sinful city to think about it. Do you have any objections? The terrifying eyes looked at Gilroy below with indifference. I have no objections. Everything is at your disposal. After hearing the Lord of Sin's words, Gilroy couldn't help but trembled, but there was no trace of dissatisfaction or objection on his face as he said hurriedly. On the side, North City Lord Garfield and others who had previously been quarreling with Gilroy were also stunned. They did not expect that the Lord of Sin's punishment for Gilroy would be so severe. The Abyss Prison is the most terrifying place in Sin City. Even a 9th-level low-level Holy Spirit Master like Gilroy will suffer tremendous pain there. It is a place where everyone is despised and deprived of the Lord of South City. His identity is a punishment so severe that it cannot be further punished. Since you have no objection, then stand down and go to the Abyss Prison by yourself. The majestic voice sounded again. Thank the Lord of Sin for your forgiveness. Gilroy said tremblingly, then respectfully withdrew. After Gilroy withdrew, Garfield and the others stood there quietly with solemn expressions, waiting for the Lord of Sin's instructions. You all should step back, remember, I don't want to hear any similar news again. The terrifying eyes stared at the 3 Garfields below, and the majestic voice echoed throughout the hall. Yes. Garfield and the others said respectfully, and then retreated one after another. For a moment, only the majestic figure in the darkness and the 2 deputy city lords of Sin City guarding both sides were left in the entire hall. Sir Scott, there is such a 9th-level low-level Holy Spirit Master in the territory of Chaos, and there is also an elixir Emperor Master who can prepare 8th-level Emperor-level elixirs. Should we go and take a look, or capture that guy named Wayne? One of the deputy city lords raised his head and asked aloud. Yes, Sir Scott, and the spiritual god's treasure. I think the news Gilroy got is probably true. If there really is a spiritual god's mansion in the Cloud Swamp, do we need to move it to the spiritual god's treasure? The territory of Chaos is secretly controlled. Another deputy city lord also spoke up and looked at the towering figure in the darkness. No need. The majestic figure said, Reese, Pasolai, you two don't have to worry about this matter. The Cloud Swamp is one of the 7 forbidden areas in the mainland. The scary thing about it is that even if you go in, there is great danger, and our Sin City cannot do anything to confer authority on other forces, so you don't have to worry about the territory of Chaos. As for the spiritual treasure, I will go and find out personally. The mansion of the spiritual god is a bit ghostly, the rumbling voice echoed in the ears of the 2 deputy city lords, and then slowly dissipated. When Reese and Pasolai came back to their senses, Wing's update team, that the towering figure in the darkness has disappeared. I hope that the matter of the spiritual treasure is true and can be of help to you, so that your strength can be further improved. Only in this way, on the next birthday of the god, only in this way can our Sin City be able to defeat the other two. The city and the four great empires are one step ahead and can even rival or even surpass the Twin Towers to become the #1 power in the continent. Both of them sighed, and then their figures slowly disappeared into the hall. At the same time, above the Sin City, a terrifying figure looked towards the southwest of the cloud swamp, and then the figure gradually disappeared into the sky. Deep in the cloud swamp, the rich red poisonous mist surged like a wave, like a land of death. In the depths of the red poisonous mist, a huge, city-like palace stood there, giving people endless majesty. There is a transparent barrier outside the palace, blocking out the thick poisonous mist, making it an out-of-this-world place in this cloudy swamp. At this moment, this inaccessible and deep swamp where no one has been seen all year round. At this point, four figures suddenly appeared outside the barrier, entering directly into the maze of death from the rich red mist. Back here again. Looking at the familiar building, the leading black-haired young man couldn't help but reveal a trace of sadness on his face. These four people were the four Jasons who came to the Death Maze from the City of Chaos. Death Maze? Archimedes looked at this tall building. As a local force in the territory of chaos, he had heard too many legends about the Death Labyrinth. Now that he saw it, he could not help but feel a sense of emotion in his heart. And Wayne and Loken, the two of them, also looked at this mysterious building with shock. "Is this the spiritual god's mansion?" Wayne murmured, his eyes shining. "Haha, Wayne, this is just a building outside the Death Maze. You have to pass through this building to enter the Jingtong Palace, the residence of the god-slaying Nadim," Jason said with a smile in front of the team. "Go through this building?" Wayne looked at the densely packed holes in this gray-white building that was thousands of meters high and nearly 10,000 meters long. He opened his mouth, but couldn't say anything. "Jason, let's go," Renault said. "Do you still remember the route we poisoned last time?" Although Renault has received Nadim's inheritance and has been in retreat here all year round, every time it is through the inheritance order that you can directly enter the metal inheritance space. As for the Jingtong Palace, Renault has never entered it again. Renault is not familiar with the route of the Death Maze. "Well, everyone, follow me. I know the route." Jason nodded, then came to the hole closest to him and walked directly in. "Jason, wasn't the entrance I walked through back then facing the 57th hole from left to right on the north side?" "Why did you?" Seeing Jason's actions, Renault's expression suddenly looked a little confused. Although Renault didn't remember the specific route after entering the hole clearly, he still clearly remembered the entrance location. "Father, don't worry, you're right to follow me," Jason said with a smile. Seeing Jason's confident look, Renault shook his head. Although he was doubtful, he was full of confidence in Jason and followed him without hesitation. Wayne and others also followed behind Jason, walked into the hole together. The familiar gray passage instantly caught Jason's eye. The entire passage was about 5 meters high and wide, leading deep into the depths, with no end as far as the eye could see. On the walls around the passage, a large number of spiritual inscriptions were densely engraved. Pattern formation method. Except for Jason and Renault, Wayne and the other 3 people were surprised as soon as they entered, because his spiritual consciousness, which had reached the 9th level, could only spread 1,000 meters, but he couldn't feel it. "The next thing is up." This surprised Wayne, and at the same time he made him even more curious about the so-called god-killing Nadim. Naturally, Jason and Renault had known about this situation for a long time, and there was no surprise on their faces. Under the leadership of Jason, everyone immediately walked towards the depths of the hole. Although Jason had never been to this hole before, he was extremely familiar with the 9 spirits chi gathering formation. According to the structure of the spirit patterns on the passage, he moved forward and after a few turns, he entered the depths of the passage. "Jason, are you sure there's nothing wrong?" Renaud carefully wrote down the path he took along the way and asked a little cautiously. Although as an 8th level intermediate emperor spiritual master, he can be said to be highly skilled and daring, this death maze was built by the god-killing Nadim after all. These passages are extremely strong and extremely difficult to destroy. Once everyone is lost in it, even if there are a 9th level low-level Holy Spirit master like Wayne would probably be completely trapped in it and unable to escape. Don't worry, Father. Seeing Renaud's nervous look, Jason couldn't help but smile. Father, in fact, this entire death maze is a spiritual power formation. I can completely find out the exit based on the spiritual patterns carved on this passage. Find the exit based on the spiritual patterns on the passage? After hearing what Jason said, Renaud couldn't help but believe it. Although he didn't know much about spiritual power formations, he could still tell that the spiritual patterns on this passage definitely had some purpose. Under the leadership of Jason, everyone walked quickly through the passage. Sure enough, after walking in the endless passage for an unknown period of time, a ray of light suddenly projected out from a certain hole in front. Here, we're at the exit. Jason said in his mouth and flew out all of a sudden, and Wayne and the others also flew out after Jason. A vast and beautiful plain suddenly appeared in front of Wayne and the others. Wayne and the others couldn't help but be intoxicated. What a beautiful place! Loquen's eyes were shining, looking at the blue sky and the elegant flowers and plants, he couldn't help but say. Let's go, the Jintong Palace is just ahead. Jason spoke up and flew forward at the same time. Wayne and others immediately followed Jason and flew forward. A moment later, a beautiful palace appeared in front of everyone. It was as high as several dozen 100 meters away, the palace was made of black jade. The golden plaque at the entrance of the palace continued to exude a majestic aura, making everyone's hearts tremble. Jason and others fell in front of the palace, their eyes it landed on a stone pillar next to the palace. Haha, hello to all guests who have come from afar, I am Nadim, the god-killer. The palace you see is my Nadim's mansion. In this palace, there is my Nadim's treasure, so those who want the treasure, go ahead, but there are still some dangers inside. This treasure is left to the destined people. Maybe all of you are destined to be the destined ones, and maybe not one of you is as good as it is fate that you are here, so I left some things on the stone platform outside the palace as a reward for you to get here, but those are just appetizers, and the treasure inside is the real treasure of my Nadim. The treasures are ready, everyone, go explore, all my treasures are waiting for you in the palace, haha. The big characters full of arrogant and domineering atmosphere are still engraved on the stone pillars, just like before, without any change. The entrance to the Jintong Hall is right here. Jason led Wayne and others to the Jade Gate at the front of the hall. There were countless patterns carved on the gate, forming formations. Everyone, come to the door. Under the leadership of Jason, everyone immediately stood in front of the door. Jason and the others were standing in front of this Jade Gate when they were sucked into the Jintong Hall by a golden light shining from the gate. However, at this moment, when Jason and the others stood still in front of the gate, the Jade Gate was like a dead object, without any change. Everyone stood quietly for a moment, but the door engraved with countless strange patterns never lit up, sucking everyone in. What's going on? Jason's brows suddenly frowned. He put his hand on the jade and stone gate, but he didn't feel the slightest breath. At the same time, he pushed with all his strength, and the Jade Gate didn't move at all. Let me come. After seeing this scene, Wayne immediately came to the door. The 9th level holy spiritual power in his body continued to surge. He pushed with all his strength, and the terrifying power suddenly surged like a wave. Entered the gate. However, as a 9th level low-level Holy Spirit Master, Wayne, who could knock down a mountain with all his strength, when his power poured into the Jade Gate, it seemed as if he had disappeared into the sea without any change. You can't do it. A trace of shock appeared on Wayne's face immediately, and then he shouted loudly, put his hands on the jade door, and pushed it with all his strength. Infinite power poured into the Jade Gate, but there was still no change. This Wayne's expression suddenly changed. As a ninth-level Holy Spirit Master, he could not push open a stone door. This made him almost unable to believe his eyes. Is this God-killing Nadim really that strong? In front of the Jade Gate, Jason and Renaud couldn't help but look at each other, with a wry smile on their lips. Jason never expected that he couldn't enter the Jintong Palace. Can it be that this Jintong Palace can only be entered once? Jason was confused. At this moment, it seemed that there was only one answer. Spreading Wings Update Team, let me give it a try. Renaud said, and came to the jade door with the intention of giving it a try. His hand had just touched the jade door. At this moment, a deafening sound suddenly sounded. The lines on the jade door suddenly lit up, emitting golden light. At the same time, the inheritance token on Renaud's body also lit up, floating out from Renaud's body, emitting a golden light, and a message suddenly reached Renaud's mind. Heir, do you want to enter the assessment square? A voice with strong will sounded directly in Renaud's mind. As the inheritor of the god-killing Nadim, Renaud only relied on this inheritance token to enter and exit the inheritance space, but he did not expect that this inheritance token could have such a use. But what makes Renaud strange is that he is extremely familiar with the voice of god-killing Nadim, who has heard it many times in the inheritance space. It is a voice that is arrogant, flamboyant, domineering, and unscrupulous. The voice that appeared in his mind at this moment, was extremely calm, and it was different from the voice of the god-killing Nadim that Renaud was familiar with. Yes. Renaud responded immediately. As Renaud's words fell, the entire Jade Gate suddenly shot out a soft golden light, directly covering everyone. Suddenly, Jason and others who were still at the entrance of Jintong Palace disappeared outside the palace in an instant. At this moment, in the sky outside the cloud swamp, a figure stood proudly, looking towards the depths of the cloud swamp filled with red mist. According to the news, the so-called spiritual treasure should be deep in the cloud swamp in this area. I will search slowly, and I should be able to find the death maze. The terrifying figure said indifferently. Powerful spiritual consciousness was released instantly, covering a large area. The terrifying figure turned into a stream of light and instantly rushed into the thick red poisonous mist. As soon as the poisonous mist came close to his body, it was like a mouse seeing a cat, and it retreated in terror as if it were alive. Come on. The figure flew towards the depths of the cloud swamp like riding the wind and waves, and its spiritual consciousness continued to extend, searching for the location of the mysterious word of death. Jason and the others, who were instantly shrouded in golden light, felt light all over. When they came to their senses, they were already in a huge square. Here is Jason's face suddenly showed surprise. A white jade square, shrouded in clouds and mist, appeared in front of Jason. Directly in front of the white jade square, on the left, was a human statue made of white crystal stone, which was several meters high. On the right was a huge stone tablet made of white marble. This human body statue made of white crystal stone is of a handsome figure, with a cold sword-like eyebrow. He carries a rusty épée with complex patterns on his back. The sword is engraved with the word Jintong, and the stone tablet is on the top. Everyone saw a familiar handwriting. Haha, first of all, congratulations on coming here. Since you can reach here, it means that you are destined to me, Nadim. I think everyone has seen it. The square in front of you has two ends, and there are two light gates on the left. Enter the 7-colored light door on the left, and you will undergo an assessment. After the assessment is over, you will receive your own rewards based on your performance, and the white light door is the passage through which you leave after receiving the rewards. Enter the white light door. You will be teleported outside. As for where the stairs on the right lead to, you don't need to worry about it. Leave directly after getting the reward. Don't try to enter the right side. In the stairs, on this ladder, I have arranged the Forbidden Spirit Realm. It's okay if you want to try it. However, I advise you not to go deep. Once you enter the depths of the stairs, you will die without rebirth. Everyone looked at them. looking from both sides of the square. On the left side of the square, there are two light doors, one colorful and the other white. On the right side of the square, there is a staircase leading to an unknown place deep in the clouds and mist. Jason, a voice rang in my ears just now, asking me if I was entering some kind of assessment square, so I agreed. This should be some kind of assessment square, Renaud said to Jason and everyone with confused expressions. Father, I have been to this assessment square. That 7-colored light door is exactly where Daimler and the others got the treasure. Jason murmured, and at the same time looked at the stairs on the other side. This time they entered the Jintong Hall and did not experience the illusion of life and death and the swamp of hell. Instead, they came directly to the exit of the assessment, which was his destination this time, which made him a little excited. Jason knew that at the end of the stairs, he would get the golden spirit bead, and it would also be the location of the divine medicine palace where Lan Yu Gusen awakened. Whoosh! Without any hesitation, Jason immediately rushed towards the stairs quickly. Wayne, you enter the 7-colored light door for the assessment, and I'll go up and take a look, Jason said, and rushed into the depths of the clouds and mist of the stairs without looking back. At this moment, he couldn't wait to see the elixir formula that once made him feel palpitated. He also wanted to find a clue about Lan Yu Gusen's life experience from the divine elixir palace. Jason. Seeing Jason rushing directly into the stairs without any hesitation, Wayne suddenly shouted nervously, "This is written on the stone tablet, but you must not enter this staircase. There are many dangers inside, and there is no chance of death." Regarding Jason's action of rushing into the stairs in the clouds and mist against the words of the stone tablet, Wayne couldn't help but be shocked. Everything that happened in front of the Jade Gate before made him a 9-year-old man. The low-level Holy Spirit Master has no contempt for this god-killing Nadim. Don't worry, Wayne, there is no danger on this ladder anymore. If you don't believe me, come in and take a look. The so-called Forbidden Spirit Realm has long since disappeared. Jason did not stop because of Wayne's words, and his whole body instantly submerged into the depths of the clouds. At the same time, sounds came from far away from above. The Forbidden Spirit Realm is gone? Wayne immediately came to the stairs and walked in. Sure enough, his perception did not change at all. The so-called Forbidden Spirit Realm on the stone tablet did not exist at all. Wayne, Jason has been here before. I think he will be fine. Let's enter this colorful light door and see what the so-called assessments and rewards are inside. Seeing Wayne's actions, Renaud couldn't help laughing. Let's do this. I'll be the first to go in. After I'm sure there's no danger, you can come in again, Renaud said to Loken and Archimedes. In the eyes of everyone, he acted as if he was walking towards the colorful light door. Lord Renaud, I should come first, Archimedes shouted immediately. Yes, Lord Renaud, let me and Archimedes come first, Loken also spoke out. It's not that the two of them want to take the assessment in advance, but no one has ever entered this colorful light door, and no one knows what is inside. If there is any danger, the person who enters first will definitely suffer a loss, so Archimedes and Loken both wanted to come first. Haha, don't worry, everyone, I'll be fine, Renaud said with a smile and walked directly into the colorful light door. The previous scene in front of the Jade Gate made Renaud understand that as the inheritor of god-killing Nadim, with the inheritance token, he is definitely the safest among everyone present. This kind of unknown thing still makes him. He came to test the best on the stairs. Jason kept flying quickly, and in a moment he entered the depths of the clouds. Back then, here, he was besieged by Herbert, Daimler, and others, with no way out. It could be said that he had a narrow escape. In the end, he was forced into the depths of the stairs, surrounded by countless black air currents, and was in many dangers. Finally, he realized that Avogadro's law has reached the depth of the ladder. Now that I think about this scene, the past seems to be still in front of me, but compared with last time, Jason is not in any danger this time. When Jason absorbed the golden spirit bead and walked out of the divine medicine hall, the forbidden spirit realm and the black airflow on the stairs suddenly disappeared. Even now, there is only the slightest trace, so naturally there is no danger. In Jason's rapid flyby, he was moving forward while comprehending Avogadro's law. It took him several days to reach the divine medicine palace. This time, Jason only spent an hour. Unexpectedly, the shocking divine medicine palace appeared in front of Jason. Although Jason had already seen it once before, but when he saw the carved jade carving again, it exuded a strong aura of spiritual power. It was made up of a large piece of crystal-clear body, but there was a faint feeling inside. The palace made of milky white void crystals, the three magnificent characters Divine Medicine Palace polished with legendary sun flame crystals, and the foundation of the palace made of dragon-scale secret iron still filled Jason's heart. Shocked. This is a grand gesture that even he, who was the #1 person in the mainland and a 9th-level elixir master in his previous life, did not have. Without any hesitation, Jason went directly to the blue door made of a whole piece of blue charm dragon jade, pushed open the door of the Divine Medicine Palace, and walked into the palace. It was still a very simply decorated hall, and Jason walked into the first room. Rows of translucent jade cabinets, as before, contained a large number of rare materials that had completely lost their elixir essence. The same goes for the second room, which is also filled with rows of jade cabinets, which contain some elixir materials that have completely lost their vitality and have lost all their medicinal efficacy and spiritual power. Except for a few rare 8th-level elixirs, these elixir materials are all 9th-level elixirs. Now, they have all become individual plants, which makes Jason, the elixir master, feel quite heartbroken. You know, each of these 2 rooms has nearly 1,000 cabinets and nearly 2,000 9th-level elixirs. What is the concept? Jason doesn't have even a 9th-level elixir on his body now. The most precious thing on his body is the Tai Sui tree, which is the 8th-level peak elixir. In terms of rarity, it can only be placed in the cabinet. Even in his previous life, Jason, as the #1 person in the Stern continent, only had a dozen or so 9th-level elixir materials. Compared with the owner of this divine elixir palace, the difference was far behind. In the room, Jason's double formation was solemn, and his right hand instantly turned into an afterimage, and he reached into a cabinet. Suddenly, the completely petrified 9th-level holy elixir in it seemed to be weightless. It entered Jason's hands and was taken out by Jason. When Jason came here, he was a low-level 4th-level heavenly spirit master with only a 7th-level physical strength. With a light touch, these elixir fossils were completely turned into stone powder, but now, they have become 9th-level. As a spiritual medicine master, he is able to identify these fossils to a greater extent. Jason's 8th-level spiritual consciousness instantly entered the fossil, allowing him to perceive it in detail. At the same time, his 9th-level body also experienced everything in the entire elixir fossil from all angles. Complete loss, the efficacy, spiritual power, and essence in it were completely lost, and it was produced in a short period of time. Jason could even feel the process of the essence in the elixir rushing out in an instant and completely dissipating. This must have been extracted by something. Jason's heart skipped a beat. There are many ways to extract the medicinal effects of elixirs, but the medicinal effects of these elixirs were extracted extremely cleanly, without a trace. The residue, Jason thought to himself, with his current strength, there is simply no way he can do this. But other than that, Jason didn't feel anything. It's not known how much time had passed since these elixir materials had all turned into a pile of useless fossils, and he could no longer feel any breath or efficacy. Jason gently touched the petrified elixir in his hand, and the petrified spirit instantly disappeared into ashes and turned into a pile of stone powder, floating in the air. Jason looked at the room carefully again. When he found nothing, he entered the third room. In the third room, there are also petrified elixirs, but unlike the nearly 1,000 cabinets in the first 2 rooms, there are only dozens of cabinets in this third room, and the materials of these cabinets are but it is much better than the previous two. Dozens of cabinets also contain a large amount of petrified materials. Using the same technique as before, Jason took out one of the elixirs and felt it carefully. Huh? When Jason's perception came into contact with these elixirs, a hint of shock appeared in his fat eyes. After Jason entered here, he was not very strong, so he just felt that the materials here were better than those in the first two rooms. But this time when he entered the 9th level elixir master, he was surprised. It was discovered that the elixir materials here are indeed completely different from those before. The materials in the first two rooms had all the essence dissipated, with no trace left, and the structure was completely decayed, with no trace of the connection. However, as for the elixir materials in the third room, Jason I was surprised to find that these elixir materials actually had a well-preserved structure. Although they had all become fossils, the structures inside were perfectly preserved. What surprised Jason even more was that with his 9th level, his body felt that there was still a faint trace of vitality inside this petrified elixir. Although it was just a trace, it was like a living thing. The strong will contained in it made Jason couldn't help but be shocked. At that time, his physical strength was only at the 7th level of the Imperial Spiritual Master, and his spiritual consciousness was only at the low level of the 4th level, so he did not feel anything inside. Let's do it! Jason's twin wings suddenly shot out a ray of light. He carefully took out a preparation bottle from the space ring, and at the same time, the right hand holding the petrified material suddenly disappeared. The petrified material that was originally held fell to the ground immediately, and then exploded with a ping sound. Stone powder spread all over the sky, completely decaying in the air, but Jason's double body was full of brilliant light. Shooting, his body suddenly disappeared, and an invisible wind enveloped the dissipated stone powder in the sky. The stone powder squirmed as if it was alive, and finally turned into nothingness. In the room, Jason's figure appeared. His forehead was covered with sweat. The previous action consumed a lot of his energy, but his eyes were burning at his left hand, where there was a medicine bottle. And in the potion bottle, there was a faint scent of the elixir that was almost invisible to the naked eye, floating slowly. It is the trace of elixir essence extracted from the petrified elixir. In Jason's perception, although this elixir essence was stored in the potion bottle, it was still gradually dissipating. In less than a moment, it would completely dissipate in the air. Jason frowned slightly, looking at the elixir essence that could dissipate at any time. An idea suddenly appeared in his mind. He shook his left hand slightly, and a 7th level 7-leaf ginseng suddenly appeared in front of him. In his hands, he bought it at the London provincial auction. Under Jason's control, the weak elixir essence was immediately guided by him to the 7-leaf ginseng in his hand. Under Jason's control, the elixir essence was slowly guided into the 7-leaf spirit ginseng. A scene that surprised Jason happened. According to Jason's perception, after the 7-leaf ginseng absorbed the essence of the elixir, the medicinal properties of the entire ginseng increased tremendously. At the same time, there was a slight movement in the blank space next to the 7th leaf of the spiritual ginseng, and then in Jason's surprised eyes, a tiny bud actually grew at a speed visible to the naked eye. This bud continued to grow. In just a few moments, it grew to 1/3 the size of an ordinary leaf, and it continued to grow until it reached half the size of the 7th leaf, and then it completely stopped. Come down. What happened? Looking at this strange scene, Jason's eyes widened and he was completely shocked. After absorbing the essence of the elixir, this 7-leaf ginseng grew from a 7th level 7-leaf ginseng to an 8th level 8-leaf ginseng in a short period of time. It's so weird. The scene made Jason almost unable to believe his eyes. In Stern Continent, why are 8th level Emperor level elixirs so rare? It is because of the scarcity of 8th level materials that any 8th level elixir needs years of growth and special opportunities to grow. Even if Jason redeemed it in the Elixir Master Tower, Sky City, the 7-leaf ginseng that has sprouted its 8th leaf will take at least a year to fully grow its 8th leaf under the 9 spirits chi gathering formation with an amplitude of more than 30 times. However, the elixir essence that was previously stripped from the petrified elixir actually allowed this 7th level 7-leaf ginseng to evolve into an 8th level 8-leaf ginseng in such a short period of time. Spiritual ginseng, and half of the 8th leaf was directly pulled out. Jason, a 9th level elixir master in his previous life, could not understand it at all and could hardly believe his eyes. What level of elixir is this unknown elixir? The Temple of Divine Medicine, the Temple of Divine Medicine, could it really be a 10th level elixir? Jason murmured to himself, with shock in his eyes. Although he did not understand the level of this petrified elixir, Jason was certain that the elixir materials in the cabinet in the 3rd room were definitely not 9th order holy elixirs. 9th order holy elixirs, Jason had seen some in his previous life, but they didn't have the magical effect of pings before. Immediately, Jason's eyes suddenly looked at the remaining cabinets in the 3rd room. There was a hint of fanaticism in his clear eyes. Since there was a trace of elixir essence in the previously petrified elixir, then where is the rest of the petrifying elixir? He quickly opened the remaining cabinets, and at the same time, his senses extended in carefully. Immediately, a trace of surprise appeared on Jason's face. This 3rd room has dozens of cabinets, 27 of which contain materials. In addition to the previous one extracted by Jason, there are also 3 plants that were curious when Jason came in last time. Were touched and turned into ashes, so there were still 23 cabinets of materials left. In Jiamu's perception, there is more or less a trace of elixir essence remaining in these 23 kinds of petrified materials. That being the case, a flash of light suddenly flashed through Jason's double body, and the ordinary potion bottle before was instantly replaced by an amethyst potion bottle. Then, his figure suddenly disappeared, and at the same time, the petrified elixir in the 3rd cabinet among the 23 cabinets containing the petrified elixir flew slowly out of the cabinet, and then turned into powder all over the sky. Jason's figure kept swimming in the powder. The elixir powder all over the sky instantly decayed into nothingness, and the elixir essence contained in it was collected by Jason into the potion bottle in his hand. When these 3 after the essence in the material was completely extracted, Jason disappeared again without stopping. The petrified materials in the next 3 cabinets also flew past and then exploded. In this way, Jason concentrated on extracting the elixir essence from these petrified elixirs. The petrified elixirs flew out one after another without any rest. I don't know how long it took, but all the petrification elixirs in the 23 cabinets disappeared. Jason's figure stopped in the room. His body was soaked with sweat, and he was panting because of the high intensity. After extraction, his face was flushed, his forehead was covered with sweat, and his hands were trembling slightly. But there was no hint of fatigue in his eyes, and he looked at his left hand with a smile. In his left hand, the amethyst potion bottle exuded a magnificent purple halo, wrapped in a clear and discernible ball. The essence of the elixir is so pure that it contains an inexplicable spirit and will. What pleased Jason was that the elixir essence that had been dissipating in ordinary potion bottles was very stable in the amethyst potion bottle and did not slowly dissipate over time. Jason was looking forward to it. A trace of the elixir essence, contained in a petrified elixir, after being absorbed by the 7-leaf ginseng, directly evolved into the 8th level 8-leaf ginseng. Such a big group, what kind of effects will the elixir essence extracted from the 23 petrochemical medicines have? Jason carefully preserved the amethyst potion bottle and put it into his space ring. The environment here was too simple. He needed to return to his own laboratory in the Alchemist Tower to carefully study this powerful spirit. Medicinal essence. After doing all this, Jason walked into the 4th room again. Spreading Wings Update Team, a jade platform about 3 meters long and wide was placed in front of Jason. Last time, because of the strong attraction of the golden Lingzhu, Jason did not look at the 4th room carefully. This time, Jason looked at it carefully. The whole room was still empty, but on the foundation of the jade platform, Jason saw something that he had not noticed before. Some complex spiritual patterns were engraved on the foundation of the jade platform. This key, Jason stepped forward quickly, and gently brushed the spiritual patterns with his right hand. The familiar lines were outlined, making Jason's eyes widen suddenly. This pattern is the central pattern of the 9 spirits chi gathering array. In other words, this is the center of the large 9 spirits chi gathering array outside. What is going on? Jason murmured. The 9 spirits chi gathering array is an extremely large and unique spiritual array. It can speed up the growth of elixirs, enhance the evolution of elixirs, improve the survival rate of elixirs, and many other advantages. The 9 spirits chi gathering array is the formation has a huge area, and all the elixirs within the formation can enjoy its amplitude. Of course, the 9 spirits chi gathering formation can also set up a most critical center through the formation, which can make the effectiveness of the formation is only provided in a certain core area. The spirit patterns on the foundation of this jade platform indicate that this jade platform is the core of the large 9 spirits chi gathering formation outside. However, the center of the 9 spirits chi gathering formation is usually set up for the purpose of ripening a rare and special elixir, but the jade platform in this room was empty, not even a single elixir plant, and the jade platform did not look like a place for growing elixirs at all, so I was extremely confused. After looking at the room carefully again, Jason finally left the room and came to the 5th room because he really couldn't figure it out. The empty laboratory was as empty as ever. Jason came straight to the wall with a line of small words engraved on it, which looked like a formula for elixirs, and looked at it carefully. The last time he watched it, Jason was shocked to the soul by the aura projected by those small words. This time, even though Jason was more than a little stronger than last time, Jason still had a trace of it in his heart. Wary, I only saw him looking like this, boom. A powerful momentum that could break the sky came from the line of small words, like meteors pouring down from the 9 heavens, and instantly blasted into Jason's mind. An aura that was difficult for Jason to resist spread to Jason. The endlessly powerful aura pressed in, making Jason suffocate. At the same time, a picture suddenly appeared in Jason's mind. A figure suddenly appeared. This figure was extremely tall. His back was turned to Jason, and his hands seemed to be evolving something. Endless aura rose from his body. As he evolved, the whole world suddenly became hazy, and the sky continued to the ground collapsed, the ground continued to rise and fall, and the whole world seemed to turn into chaos in an instant. The aura of destruction made Jason's soul continue to vibrate. A mouthful of blood spurted out from Jason's mouth. Jason's face instantly turned extremely pale, and he fell to the ground with a thud. Heaven and earth refining technique. Although the strong will from before shocked his soul, it also allowed him to see clearly the line of small characters, which looked like a formula for elixirs, printed into Jason's mind. In my mind, it turned into these 5 soul-shaking characters. This wind is impossible, Jason said with horror in his eyes. The previous scene kept echoing in his mind, making him unable to calm down for a long time. What surprised him was not that he was so powerful now, but that he would be hurt by the powerful aura contained in that line of small words, the astonishing scene of a figure refining heaven and earth, but with Jason's attainments as a 9th-level elixir Saint Master, he actually discovered that the opponent's heaven and earth refining technique attack method and the preparation method in elixir science were perfect. Extremely striking similarity. It was as if the figure from before regarded the world as a mixing bottle, and all things in the world as elixir ingredients to prepare. That technique deeply impressed Jason's soul and made him feel extremely shocking. Could it be that this figure is the god-killing Nayumu in Go Legend? Jason couldn't calm down in his heart for a long time. He was still recalling the earth-shattering scene before. The momentum that wiped out the world and turned everything in the world into elixirs made Jason tremble in his heart. Can spiritual medicine and spiritual masters really have something in common? Is there really such a technique in this world? Jason couldn't help but wonder, is it really possible to integrate elixir science into attack techniques and evolve extremely powerful combat power? Jason's mind kept replaying the previous scene, and at the same time, he used his mastery of skills to bring it in. However, Jason found that this was simply impossible. Needless to say, just turning the heaven and earth into potion bottles, the method of completely controlling the elements of the heaven and earth, is far beyond what I can master now. Although Jason's physical strength has now reached the lower level of the 9th level, and he has been promoted to the lower level of the 9th level of Elixir Master, his level as a spiritual master is still too low, and his understanding of the laws of elements has not yet reached such a deep level. However, Jason had a feeling in his heart that as long as he waited for his spiritual master to advance to the 9th level and truly control the elements of heaven and earth, he might be able to achieve the possibility of learning the elixir like the figure in his mind. Used in attacks. In the laboratory, Jason, who had stood quietly for a long time, couldn't help but shook his head, and then left the 5th room and entered the final palace. The entire dormitory was quiet, without a sound, and the surrounding area was empty without any human traces. Here, Jason found nothing. Except for some decayed 9th level holy elixirs and the elixirs in the 3rd room that are most likely 10th level elixirs, in this divine medicine hall, there is only one golden spirit bead that I had originally. Why would Senior Sister Lanyuigusan do it now? Where are you here? After carefully searching the entire divine medicine hall, Jason found helplessly that he could not find the reason why Lanyuigusan appeared here in the first place. Father, they must be waiting impatiently. Jason, who really couldn't figure it out, searched all Fong Ran again and found nothing. He did not continue to stay in the divine medicine palace, walked out of the palace door, and hurried down the stairs. Fly away quickly. And when Jason was enlightened in the temple of divine medicine, he was on the square. Renaud, Loken, and Archimedes were sitting quietly on the square, their faces full of excitement looking at the colorful light door. Previously, the 3 of them had entered the 7-colored light door. Loken got a roll of high-grade moon-level spiritual skills that matched his own physique, and Archimedes got a roll of high-grade moon-level skills that matched his own attributes, and Renaud, the inheritor of God-killing, got a low-grade heaven-destroying sword, which made the 3 of them ecstatic. Now, Wayne is undergoing assessment inside, and Renaud and the others are looking forward to what kind of reward Wayne, as a 9th-level low-level ice-based Holy Spirit Master, will get. Whether it is weapons or techniques, they are extremely helpful to Wayne, a 9th-level Holy Spirit Master. After all, although Wayne has been practicing in the Arctic ice fields for so long, he has a deep understanding of the laws of ice. However, the techniques and weapons he practiced greatly limited his strength, especially in terms of weapons and techniques. Wayne could also create some powerful mysterious spiritual skills based on his understanding of ice laws, but weapons, once you encounter a strong man of the same level as Gilroy again, you will easily suffer. Just when Renaud and others were thinking about it, suddenly, haha. A cheerful laughter suddenly came out from the 7-colored light door. At the same time, a figure walked out of the 7-colored light door and appeared in front of Renaud and others. It was Wayne, who was different from when he entered before. At that time, in Wayne's hand, there was a long and narrow dreamlike ice sword. As soon as this ice sword was exposed to the air, Renaud and others felt a chill all over their bodies. Goosebumps stood up on their bodies. The astonishing cold air escaped from it. It actually made an 8th-level intermediate emperor spiritual master like Renaud, and Loken and Archimedes, the 2 8th-level low-level imperial spiritual masters, felt bursts of severe pain in their skin, as if they felt like they were about to be torn apart. Wayne, you ice sword, Renaud and others said with shock on their faces. Haha, my ice sword is called Mangling. It is a mid-level ice-based spiritual weapon at the heaven level. Wayne's face was filled with a bright smile. He had no reason to be unhappy. With this Mangling spirit, his strength will be improved in stages. If he meets Gilroy again at this moment, even without Jason's elixir, Wayne is confident that he will completely defeat him. This time entering the maze of death, the four of them they all made huge gains. By the way, where is Jason? Putting away the dream spirit in his hand, Wayne looked at Renaud with confusion and said, "Have you not come down the stairs yet?" Renaud nodded, looking at the stairs with a hint of worry in his eyes. "How about we go up and take a look there? Waiting here is a waste of time anyway." Everyone looked at each other and nodded. Immediately, the four of them followed the direction Jason was heading. When they reached the stairs, they flew towards the depths of the mist. But before Renaud and the others could get far, they saw on the stairs, deep in the clouds, a figure flew down quickly. "Father, why are you here?" This figure was none other than Jason, who came out of the Divine Medicine Palace. He stood quickly in front of Renaud and others and spoke. "Spreading Wings Update Team, I'm not worried about you yet," Renaud said with a smile. Now that Jason is back, Renaud and others did not continue forward. The five of them immediately returned along the stairs. On the way back, Lokuan excitedly told Jason what he had learned. "A high-grade moon-level spiritual skill that suits your physique?" Jason was surprised after casually checking out the spiritual skills that Lokuan passed on to him. You must know that Lokuan's physique is that of a wood spirit. Generally, there are many high-grade wood spiritual skills at the moon level, but wood spiritual skills that can really bring out the special strength of the wood spirit body are extremely rare. But Lokuan, the scroll of spiritual skills obtained called Blue Emperor's Seal technique, was an extremely clever combination of the special physique of the wood spirit body. It was an unparalleled powerful spiritual skill, which surprised Jason. And then after learning about the weapons that Wayne had obtained, Jason was even more speechless. He suddenly discovered that the god-killing Nadim did not know what he was doing. There were all kinds of treasures in the Jintang temple. Although he had, as a spiritual god, he must have a high status. It is nothing to have many treasures, but it is a bit surprising that he even has ice-type heaven-level spiritual weapons. Under the speed of everyone, Jason and others quickly arrived at the square. "Master, you are the only one who has never entered this seven-colored light door," Luoquan said with a smile. Jason nodded. Indeed, due to time constraints, he was unable to enter the seven-colored light door. Now it was his first time to enter. Under the expectant gazes of Renaud and others, Jason instantly walked into the seven-salary door. Suddenly, Jason felt like he was immersed in an extremely warm solution, and strange forces washed through his body. When Jason came back to his senses, his whole body had appeared in what looked like a colorful river. In the middle, colorful rays of light, like a river, are constantly washing through his body, allowing him to continue to rise and fall in this colorful river. "Young man, your assessment is to persist in this torrent of spiritual power for a certain period of time. Depending on how long you persist, you will receive different rewards." A steady voice suddenly sounded in Jason's mind. Immediately, there was silence. "In this torrent of spiritual power, can you persist for a certain period of time?" Jason couldn't help but smile. Jason was extremely confident in his physical strength. Moreover, after coming to this world, he has been practicing the spiritual god art, and Jason, who specializes in spiritual knowledge and medicine, has never had the opportunity to use the violent spiritual master's method to refine his body like he did in his previous life. Isn't the current assessment process an excellent body refining process? When he thought of this, Jason immediately sat down cross-legged in the void, letting the five-color river, containing powerful power, continue to wash away his body. Hua hua. This torrent of five-color spiritual power was extremely gentle at the beginning, making Jason even feel like he was rippling in a river. However, as time went by, the intensity of the torrent of five-color spiritual power became stronger and stronger. The bigger rumble, terrible spiritual power continued to impact Jason. Jason sat cross-legged and closed his eyes in the river. The spiritual formula in his body was operating according to the unique formula. His body was constantly rising and falling, breathing, and absorbing the surrounding spiritual energy. force. The spiritual power impacting Jason's body became stronger and stronger, and Jason began to feel pain in his body. Slowly, this weak pain turned into severe pain, as if sharp blades were cutting his body. Generally. However, Jason's brows did not even wrinkle. This pain was nothing to him. In Jason's will, the cells in his body were under the impact of this five-color torrent. He continued to get stronger, and his physical strength slowly increased, but for his low-level 9th-level body, this level of enhancement was extremely weak. As time went by, the impact of the five-color torrent became stronger and stronger. Gradually, Jason's forehead was covered with sweat. He gritted his teeth and persisted bitterly. His whole body seemed to be burning on a fire. Generally, the whole body is filled with unbearable pain, which makes people crazy with desire. At this moment, the powerful five-color torrent suddenly disappeared, and Jason seemed to have soaked in a hot spring. A warm current immediately enveloped his whole body, making him feel extremely comfortable. The assessment is over. A steady voice sounded in Jason's ears again. The highest level of assessment for non-inheritors has passed. The highest veteran core of non-inheritors passed? Jason said with a hint of doubt in his heart. Although he didn't know what level his assessment actually belonged to, but from the words in this calm voice, it seemed that the results were not bad. Just when Jason was feeling suspicious, the surrounding scene suddenly changed. Jason, who originally seemed to be in a torrent of five colors, suddenly came to an empty house. This is a completely white room, exuding a shining light. The whole room is made of unknown materials, giving people an extremely atmospheric feeling. Just when Jason was looking around, a void voice sounded again. Jason's ears rang. Assessor, because you have passed the highest test for non-inheritors, now you can freely choose reward items. The types of items available for selection are spiritual power skills, attack spiritual skills, defensive spiritual skills, and physical skills. Magical skills, offensive spiritual weapons, defensive spiritual weapons, special treasures, elixir materials, elixirs. Now, please choose. The steady voice gradually dispersed, and the whole room suddenly fell into a state of confusion. There was silence. Free to choose items? Jason's expression was a little surprised, and then his face was filled with joy. He had also heard from Wayne and the others before that everyone's assessment was different, and based on the assessment results, the 7-colored light gate would randomly allocate rewards to the assessors. There was no choice at all. Just before the assessment, Jason was still. He was worried that after the assessment, he would be given a random reward that he might not use at all, but now, Jason is completely relieved. After all, for Jason, some things are simply dispensable. For example, with his spiritual skills, he has the spiritual god art. If you give him another powerful spiritual skill, it will not be as powerful as the god-destroying killing technique. Didn't you see that he doesn't even use the extremely heaven-defying spiritual skill of Phoenix Tan triple wave now? After all, unexpectedly, during the battle, compared with the god-destroying killing technique, the Phoenix Tan triple wave was not as powerful as it was in the early stage. As for the spiritual weapon, Jason was not very eager. Jason, who was relieved, immediately became worried. Cultivation skills are definitely not needed. There is no doubt about this. Spiritual skills are not very needed. Spiritual weapons, including the Black Épée, are not lacking for Jason for the time being. Excluding these, Jason can only use special treasures, choose from 3 options, elixir materials and elixir potions. The so-called special treasures are like space rings and golden spirit beads. In front of the special treasures that he doesn't know what they are, Jason doesn't dare to speak easily. If the other party gives him a space ring, then he will burst into tears. No, Jason would not have any delusions. It was simply impossible that the other party could give him such a heaven-defying treasure as the golden Lingzhu. The previous title of non-inheritor made Jason clearly understand that among the rewards he received, Wusu would be more powerful, but he would definitely not be the top one. In the end, Jason could only focus on elixir materials and elixir potions. Elixir materials and elixir potions? Jason hesitated for a moment, then made a decision in his mind, smiled, and said, I choose elixir materials. If he were an ordinary spiritual master, he would definitely choose elixir potions. After all, judging from the fact that Wayne, a non-inheritor, can get the reward of a heaven-level mid-level spiritual weapon, if he chooses a spiritual elixir, even the highest assessment reward for a non-inheritor will most likely be an 8th-level emperor-level elixir. Otherwise, he would not be worthy of his highest assessment reward. But for Jason, a low-level 9th-level elixir master, elixir materials are undoubtedly the best choice. Jason himself is fully capable of formulating elixir materials into elixir potions to obtain maximum benefits. As Jason finished speaking, a dazzling white light suddenly lit up in the empty room. Jason couldn't help but squint his eyes slightly. When he opened his eyes, a jade box appeared in front of him. Rewards: the 9th-level elixir void gold dragon fruit, the 9th-level elixir fire shadow charming dragon flower, the 9th-level elixir 9-colored flower lotus. The jade box slowly fell into Jason's hand, and at the same time, the steady voice also sounded in Jason's hand, ringing in the ears. The 9th-level elixir is actually a 9th-level elixir, and there are actually 3 kinds of it. Jason's eyes suddenly widened, a trace of surprise suddenly appeared on the corner of his mouth, and an expression of ecstasy appeared in his eyes. Although Jason was mentally prepared for his reward, when the reward actually appeared, Jason was still shocked. 3 9th-level elixirs, what is this concept? You must know that the most precious elixir in Jason's body, which is the 8th-level Taisui tree, does not have any 9th-level elixir. Not only that, even Jason in his previous life stood proudly at the top of the continent, so there were only more than 10 kinds of 9th-level elixirs that he had obtained. Now, he actually got 3 9th-level elixirs at once, which made Jason couldn't believe his ears. He carefully opened the jade box in his hand and saw that the entire jade box was divided into 3 compartments. In the first compartment, there was a golden fruit. The whole fruit was about the size of a baby's fist. Big and small, the whole body is golden, somewhat translucent, with a glistening golden glow, and in this fruit, it seems like there is a small golden dragon swimming around, giving people an extremely shocking feeling. It is the 9th-level elixir Shijin dragon fruit. The void gold dragon fruit is somewhat similar to the 5-ray star fruit that Jason saw in the first room of the Divine Medicine Hall. Its effect is extremely powerful. It is said that after preparation, it can make an 8th-level peak gold elixir master, the Holy Spirit master who is instantly promoted to the 9th level after taking it is very powerful. Placed in the second grid is an illusory, mist-like flame flower. The whole flower is in the shape of a dragon, like an ethereal fire dragon, sneaking into the clouds, giving people a dreamy and hazy feeling. The elixir that looks like a fire dragon is the 9th-level elixir, the fire shadow charming dragon flower. Like the void gold dragon fruit, this fire shadow charm dragon flower corresponds to a fire-type spiritual master. After preparation, it can make a fire-type spiritual master's strength change by leaps and bounds, which is no weaker than the void gold dragon fruit. In the third grid, there is a herb with 9 green beans on its head. It is the 9-color flower lotus that Jason once saw as a fossil in the Temple of Divine Medicine. 9-colored flower lotus is not prepared into elixirs. Just taking the 9 lotus seeds on the head can make a spiritual master directly advance to the 3rd level. Yes, it is the 3rd level, not the 3rd level. In other words, after a 3rd level spiritual master takes this 9-color flower lotus, he can directly advance to the 6th level spiritual master in a short time, and after a 4th level spiritual master takes it, he can directly advance to the 7th level spiritual master. However, the highest level that can be achieved by directly taking the 9-colored flower lotus is the 8th level Imperial Spirit Master. In other words, a 6th level Imperial Spirit Master can advance to the 8th level Imperial Spirit after taking it. Master, after taking it, a 7th level Imperial Spiritual Master can only advance to the lower level of the 8th level, and no higher. Of course, as a 9th level elixir, 9-colored flower lotus naturally has a very strong effect on 8th level Imperial Spiritual Masters. However, that is after it is formulated into elixir. If it is taken directly, it will not be that powerful. Moreover, the so-called promotion to the 3rd level is only for ordinary spiritual masters. People like Jason, who have 5 elements attributes and whose promotion difficulty is many times more powerful than ordinary spiritual masters, will not have such a powerful effect. After all, Jason's promotion from the 6th level Senior Spiritual Master to the 7th level low-level Imperial Spiritual Master required him to take the 8th level Peak 5-element reincarnation potion, which was too difficult. Looking at the dreamlike 3 9th level holy elixirs in the jade box in his hand, Jason carefully closed the jade box, and then put the jade box into his space ring with a face full of joy. His eyes suddenly fell on the colorful light door not far in front of him. Outside the colorful light door, Wayne, Renault, Archimedes, and Loken were standing quietly outside the light door. Their eyes he stared at the light door for a moment, waiting for Jason to appear. Half a day had passed since Jason entered the colorful light door. The time was far longer than the time they were present, which made Renault and others quite worried, not knowing what happened inside. Just when the 4 people were waiting a little anxiously, suddenly, the colorful light door lit up, and a figure walked out of the light door. It was Jason. "Jason, you're finally out." Seeing Jason, Renault and the others immediately let out a long breath, and everyone from behind came forward to greet him. "Master, what's the reward you got for being in there for so long?" Loken ran up immediately, his face full of expectation, and he spoke. Jason had a smile on his face, and with a flick of his left hand, a jade box suddenly appeared in his hand. When the jade box was opened, 3 astonishing elixir auras rose into the sky, forming astonishing waves throughout the white jade square. Among them, a golden dragon shadow is chasing in the air, a fire dragon shadow is roaring, and a misty and mysterious fairy lotus is swaying on the sea. The 3 phantoms cast a sacred light on the entire white jade square, and a terrifying aura filled the entire white jade square. "Master, this is..." Loken and Reno had doubts on their faces, while Archimedes' eyes widened and he looked stunned. As for Wayne, he was even more surprised and said, "Jason, why do I feel a trace of holy power from these 3 elixirs?" "Haha, the reward I got from this 7-colored light gate is these 3 9th level elixirs. A holy level elixir." With a smile on Jason's face, he looked at Renault. "Father, this is a 9th level virtual gold dragon fruit. Now you are an 8th level intermediate emperor spiritual master. As long as you reach the 8th level, if you are an advanced level, or peak of the 8th level, with the help of this virtual gold dragon fruit, I am sure that you will be promoted to the 9th level of the low-level Holy Spirit Master. I am sure that I will be promoted to the 9th level of the Holy Spirit Master." Renault's expression instantly changed. Petrified. "Of course, the premise is that I can find a few more 8th level gold elixirs and prepare them together. This void gold dragon fruit alone will naturally not have this effect," Jason said with a smile. Deep in the Cloud Swamp. The Cloud Swamp is one of the 7 forbidden areas in the mainland. There are many dangers in it, and human contact is rare. The entire mountain forest is dead silent, and there is no trace of life. In the depths of the Cloud Swamp, there is a sea of poisonous mist. The red poisonous mist rises and falls slowly like a tide, constantly drifting in the quiet mountains and forests, destroying everything. Suddenly, the soft poisonous mist suddenly became restless and quickly spread out. A figure with a terrifying aura all over his body slowly walked out of the red poisonous mist. This man is none other than Scott, the Lord of Sin, who came to Cloud Swamp from Sin City. In order to find traces of the death maze, he has been flying through this mountain forest. His powerful spiritual consciousness is constantly spreading, sensing everything around him. Where is this maze of death? According to the information I got, it should be in this mountain forest. With the range covered by my spiritual consciousness, it is impossible to find it as long as I don't miss it. The terrifying figure stood proudly in the poisonous forest. In the fog, the endless poisonous mist receded, and his eyes that encompassed everything in the world looked into the depths of the poisonous mist. Whoosh! His figure moved forward again, flying towards the depths of the cloud swamp. Wherever he went, countless poisonous mist spread out as if alive, and the terrifying figure just broke into the depths of the mountain forest. Just when he was constantly searching for everything around him with his powerful spiritual sense, the terrifying figure suddenly stopped. At the same time, he frowned slightly, and his eyes instantly looked into the depths of the distant mountain forest. In his perception, in the mountain forest in the distance, a huge building blocked his spiritual perception, and it seemed particularly abrupt in the depths of the cloudy swamp full of poisonous mist. "Is that building the death maze?" the terrifying figure said in a low voice. As he was feeding, his figure suddenly disappeared and flew towards the building at this moment. In an open space outside the death maze, a dazzling white light suddenly appeared. It lit up, and at the same time, a group of 5 people appeared from the white light. These 5 people, after passing the assessment, came to the Jason 5 outside the death maze from the white light door exit. "Jason, can you really let me break through to the 9th level Holy Spirit Master as long as I advance to the 8th level Imperial Spirit Master?" The white light dissipated, and Renaud murmured speechlessly. Until now, Renaud still felt extremely surprised and unbelievable about what Jason said before. What Jason said was really too shocking. He was promoted directly from the 8th level advanced or peak level to the 9th level Holy Spirit Master. What does this mean? Even though Renaud is now an 8th level intermediate Emperor Spiritual Master, he can't even imagine it. You know, a genius like Wayne, who was promoted to the 8th level peak Imperial Spiritual Master in his early 40s. After being promoted to the 8th level peak Imperial Spiritual Master, he spent several years and completely lost his strength for another 10 years. In the end, he's still in a place like the Arctic ice field, which is extremely helpful to the understanding of ice spiritual masters. It took 6 or 7 years of hard training to become a 9th level low-level spiritual master. This shows how difficult it is. Looking at the entire Stern continent, although 8th level Emperor spiritual masters are rare, they are not extremely difficult to see. There are also many 8th level high-level and peak Emperor spiritual masters in the top families of major empires and in the Twin Towers, but the 9th level Holy Spirit Master is a truly phoenix-like existence, and most 8th level Emperor spiritual masters are rare to see in their lifetime. The gap between the 8th level peak and the 9th level low level is definitely more than 1.5 stars. Like Jason, it is definitely not difficult to kill some ordinary 8th level high level and peak Emperor spiritual masters with all his strength, but that's it. With such strength, when encountering a 9th level low level Holy Spirit Master, without using the Wrath of God, Jason could only struggle to hold on without any chance of winning. This is the difference between the two. Therefore, even if Renaud has already reached the 8th level intermediate level, he is fully confident that he will be promoted to the 8th level advanced level and the 8th level peak in the near future. But if you ask him when he will advance to the 9th level low level, even in Jintong in the metal space of the palace, where the cultivation speed is 10 times that of the outside world, there is no one who has been practicing hard for 10 years, and Renaud cannot guarantee it. Now after hearing Jason's words, it's no wonder he was so surprised. "Father, since I said this, I am naturally certain." Looking at his father's unbelievable look, Jason couldn't help but be speechless. He knew that his father was not doubting him, but that it was difficult to accept the fact for a while. "Renaud, as Jason's father, don't you still believe Jason?" "I think since Jason dares to say that, it is definitely a sure thing." Wayne smiled, and he had something in his heart for Jason. Incredibly huge confidence. "Yes, I also think Master can do it." Loken and Archimedes also spoke firmly. "Okay, let's go back to the territory of chaos first." The 5 people laughed and rose up together, flying towards the surging red poisonous mist. At this moment, the originally rich red poisonous mist suddenly surged up, made way for a passage, and then, a majestic figure instantly appeared in the barrier of the death maze, and the terrifying pressure instantly oppressed everyone present. Why is there still someone here? In front of the death maze, the sudden appearance of the towering figure and the terrifying pressure shocked the 5 Jasons. The 5 people immediately focused their eyes on the terrifying figure. There was a trace of vigilance in his eyes, especially when the other party released that amazing pressure. Huang Wayne and Musen felt tremendous oppression. Whoosh! Wayne stood in front of Jason without any hesitation and stared at him warily. This is a figure hidden in a black cloak. His face cannot be distinguished. Shocking pressure is naturally released from him. That terrifying aura makes Wayne, a 9th level low-level Holy Spirit Master, feel in his heart. I couldn't help but feel a huge crisis. Wayne instantly took out the middle-grade Dream Spirit from the space ring and looked at the opponent warily. Huh? The terrifying figure obviously didn't expect the appearance of Jason and others, and couldn't help but uttered a sound of surprise, but then, the terrifying figure started to laugh. Haha, if I guess correctly, you are Wayne from the Chaos Territory, right? Well, a 9th level low-level Holy Spirit Master with good strength, and the weapon in his hand is even more amazing. It should be a heaven-level spiritual weapon, then, the terrifying figure said indifferently, and his deep gaze instantly fell on Jason and the others behind Wayne. The 8th level intermediate Metal Imperial Spiritual Master, you should be Renault from the Territory of Chaos, the 8th level low-level, Multi-attribute Spiritual Master? You are that Jason. Sure enough, the aura on your body is really extraordinary. The figure said indifferently. Wherever his eyes went, Renault and others suddenly felt as if they were naked. There was no secret at all in front of this terrifying figure. Who is your excellency? Wayne asked. Me? Haha. The terrifying figure suddenly laughed. A wave of terrifying pressure continued to ripple along with his laughter. It actually made Renault and others so sad that they almost vomited blood. It was Lian Jia. Sun also felt a shock of spiritual energy in his body. You wounded my men more than half a month ago. How come, just a few days later, you have completely forgotten about it, the terrifying figure said indifferently. Injured your men. Wayne and Jason's expressions suddenly changed, with a hint of fear in their eyes. You are like I am the Lord of Sin City, known as the Lord of Sin. The Lord of Sin said indifferently, that place behind you should be the so-called spiritual God's mansion. It is indeed extraordinary. I heard Gilroy say that you do not have heaven-level spiritual weapons. Now that you come out of here, it is actually with a heaven-level spiritual weapon. It seems that there are indeed some good things in this so-called spiritual God's mansion. Originally, if you just stay in the territory of chaos, I won't do anything to you. I didn't expect you to come here, so don't blame me for being cruel. Since you have killed people from my Sin City, no matter who is right or wrong, you will die. Moreover, if I kill you here, no one knows what will happen. I did it, the terrifying figure said calmly. Not good. After hearing the other party's words, Jason and the others were shocked. A strong sense of crisis emerged from the hearts of Jason and the others. Wayne roared and held the meandering spirit in his hand. Cutting out in an instant, the infinite ice elemental spiritual power between heaven and earth condensed, forming an ice blade as thin as cicada wings in front of the Menling, aiming at the location of the Lord of Sin and swiping away like lightning. Call out. The void was frozen directly. Under the slash of the ice blade, a space crack of more than 10 feet was instantly revealed, just like a small black mouth opened in the void. At the same time, the space ring in Wayne's hand suddenly lit up, and the bottle of 8th level Imperial elixir prepared by Sen for him instantly appeared in his hand. Everyone, retreat quickly, return to the maze of death. Wayne roared in his mouth, just to open the elixir in his hand and drink it. Whoosh! 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 Jason and the others retreated violently, flying towards the densely packed holes in the maze of death. The other party's reputation was really too great, the Lord of Sin City, that is an existence equivalent to the master level of the Twin Towers, the most pinnacle figure in the entire continent, and the powerful aura emanating from the opponent's body also makes Jason and the others unable to raise the slightest will to resist. Retreat? No need to waste your efforts, just stay here. Today, none of you can leave. An indifferent voice sounded in the ears of Jason and the others. Facing Wayne's attack, the terrifying figure aimed at the location of Jason and the others and grabbed it with one hand. Boom! The ice blade that Wayne had slashed with all his strength shattered instantly and dissipated in the air. At the same time, an unrivaled force instantly enveloped Wayne, Jason, and everyone else. This power was so powerful, it was so big that Jason and the others seemed to be stuck in a quagmire, their bodies completely unable to move. Even Wayne's hand, which was about to open the cap of the potion bottle, stopped instantly and was sealed tightly, unable to move at all. Everyone die. The voice like the god of death echoed directly in the minds of Jason and others. The terrifying figure grabbed Jason and others in the void with one hand, and the other big hand was instantly aimed at Jason and others. Shoot hard wherever you are. Boom. Terrible spiritual power boiled, and the entire sky collapsed, instantly reaching the top of Jason and the others. No. Renault and others roared in horror. They wanted to break away, but there was no way. They could only watch the opponent's unparalleled attack coming down instantly. Life and death are all on the line. Boom. Terrible spiritual power boiled, and all the spiritual power elements in the entire world became violent. The sky collapsed inch by inch, and it collapsed step by step. The palms extended by this terrifying figure were like a hill, pressing down directly. The heads of Jason and others. Ah! Faced with this irresistible blow of destruction, Jason and the others roared, trying to escape each other's attack, but it was useless. The power of this evil lord was far beyond their expectations. During the release of the powerful 9th-level domain, even a low-level 9th-level Holy Spirit Master like Wayne had no power to resist and could only watch the big hand fall down. Are you just going to die like this? At this moment, everyone's hearts were filled with despair. The feeling of powerlessness filled Jason and others' hearts with bitterness, and their eyes were filled with pain. They roared unwillingly in their hearts, trying to get rid of each other's shackles, but it was useless. In the face of absolute strength, everything was in vain. Just when Jason and the others were about to be destroyed by the Lord of Evil, buzz. A terrifying pressure came instantly, covering everyone present. At the same time, the spiritual elements in the entire world were like water condensed into ice, and they were instantly imprisoned. The palms of the terrifying figure also stopped on top of Jason and the others under this terrifying pressure. An invisible spiritual power rippled from a distance. Wherever it passed, ripples appeared in the void, directly passing through the palm of the Lord of Sin. The palm was like a hill, the shadow continued to tremble above the heads of the 5 Jasons, and then, with a bang, it turned into spiritual elements that filled the sky and dissipated in the air. How Jason and the others, who had narrowly escaped death, had a trace of panic in their eyes. They didn't know what happened, and they each looked at each other. Who is it? In the sky, the majestic figure of the Lord of Sin stood in the void. His eyes that encompassed everything in the world instantly saw through the infinite void and looked into the depths of the cloud swamp. The terrifying pressure from before it was transmitted from the depths of the cloud swamp. Get out of the cloud swamp and the territory of chaos, I will spare your life. A low voice, full of boundless domineering power, came from the depths of the cloud swamp and rumbled in the ears of Jason and the others. The voice was indescribable, as if it was a being in charge of the entire world. Just hearing that voice, Jason and others felt an irresistible feeling in their hearts. Hearing this voice, Jason and the others suddenly showed a look of surprise in their eyes, and looked at each other, and Renault's expression was even more surprised. Because this voice was very familiar to everyone, it was the same voice that had been played in Colorful before. The voice in the light gate that asked Jason and the others to accept the assessment and distribute rewards, and the voice that asked Reno if he had entered the assessment square when he entered the Jintong Hall, was exactly the same. Humph, you are pretending to be a ghost. If it were an ordinary person, I would have left here under the warning of this voice, but who is the master of evil? That is the city lord of Sin City, one of the 9 major forces in the mainland, one of the most peak people in the entire continent. How could he be intimidated by a voice? No one can stop the person I, Scott, want to kill. The Lord of Sin snorted coldly, and a monstrous spiritual power rose up from his body. Suddenly, the sky and the earth changed color, as if the end of the world was coming, and the infinite spiritual power became violent. He stretched out his palm, aiming at the location of the 5 Jasons, intending to take action again. I don't know what's good or bad. The rumbling, coercive voice sounded again between heaven and earth, and the words came with a bang. A huge space crack suddenly appeared in the void not far away from Jason and others. In the dark space hole, a huge golden claw was quietly revealed. What kind of claw is this? There are 4 in total. Toes, each one is several feet long. The sharp claws are covered with pieces of round and huge golden scales. These scales are all purple gold. They exude a shining light, and countless great laws are flowing on the golden scales, gives people a feeling of boundless depth and grandeur. What is even more surprising is that the nails on the sharp claws are as translucent and eternal as diamonds. There are golden halos flowing around, exuding an astonishing aura. Wherever they pass, the void is like it was shattered like paper. The giant golden claws were like the 9 heavens divine dragon reaching out from the clouds, aiming at the location of the Lord of Sin and pressing down on it. Wherever it passed, the void continued to shatter, unstoppable. Violent. The power of the capture is so heartbreaking. Plop. Loken and Archimedes, the 2 people with the lowest cultivation levels present, their eyes darkened and they almost fell down under the pressure. Renault was also pale, and only Jason and Wayne, the man, was still calm. Facing this astonishing scene, a dazzling light burst out from the eyes of the Lord of Sin in the sky, and an astonishing force erupted from his body like a volcano. Exploding out, a black sword instantly appeared in his right hand, exuding an aura of destruction. The Cloud Swamp is one of the 7 forbidden areas in the mainland. The deepest part is extremely dangerous. Even if a 9th level Holy Spirit Master enters, it was also a narrow escape from death. Although the Lord of Sin was the top being in the continent, how could he not be vigilant in his heart? Previously, on the surface, he wanted to attack Jason and the others, but in fact, he wanted to force the owner of the voice to take action. Destroy the world knife, destroy all eternity, a loud voice came from the mouth of the Lord of Sin. The black sword in the Lord of Sin's hand suddenly projected a memeing black sword shadow, like a black mountain peak standing proudly in the sky and earth, slashing towards the golden claws. A golden giant claw and a black knife shadow collided heavily in the void. Buzz. As if a stone splashed into the lake, amazing ripples suddenly appeared in the void. Wherever the ripples touched, the void instantly shattered. The giant golden claw seemed to tremble slightly, emitting golden halos that dispersed the black knife shadow. The black knife shadow actually trembled, and then completely shattered into pieces. A claw, silent, but the black knife shadow blasted by the Lord of Sin shattered. The giant golden claw remained unabated and invincible. Under the horrified gaze of the Lord of Sin, it instantly came in front of him and gently patted his chest. Boom, the cloak on the Lord of Sin instantly shattered, revealing a pale face, and the whole person was thrown heavily in the explosion. His eyes widened with horror, a pool of blood spurted out from his mouth, bloody and bright. Seeing this astonishing scene, Jason and the others' eyes widened with horror. Facing this giant golden claw, the Lord of Sin, as the Lord of Sin City, one of the 9 major forces in the mainland, had no resistance at all and was knocked away with one move. What kind of strength is this? I'll teach you a lesson. Get out of the mist swamp and challenge my majesty again. I will definitely make you irrecoverable. The giant golden claw hit the target, but did not continue to pursue. Then it slowly retracted and disappeared into the void. At the same time, the rumbling sound also echoed over the entire cloud swamp. The Lord of Sin had a look of horror on his face. Whoosh. Without stopping at all, his figure blurred for a while, and he disappeared between heaven and earth in an instant, escaping from here. The entire palace of death returned to calm again. Jason and others looked at each other. Your Excellency. Reynolds immediately rose up, shouted loudly, looked towards the depths of the cloud swamp, and bowed deeply. Thank you for your life-saving grace, thank you for your help. Wayne and others also walked out. If it hadn't been for the sudden appearance of the giant golden claw, I'm afraid that today's encounter with Jason and the others, the Lord of Evil, would have been much worse. With the strength of Wayne, Jason and the others, on the mainland, he can definitely be regarded as a top expert, but facing a figure like the Lord of Sin who stands at the tip of the continent's pyramid and looks down upon the mainland, his strength still seems a bit inadequate. No need to be polite. The rumbling sound resounded between heaven and earth. Excuse me, Your Excellency, who is Renault looked at the depths of the cloud swamp and spoke excitedly. He, who had received the inheritance of God-killing Nadim, was concerned about this sound. The owner was extremely curious, and his heart was filled with excitement. Me? You may be called the guardian of my temple. The voice said. The guardian of the temple, Renault murmured, and shouted again, then may I ask, sir, what is the relationship with the god-killing Nadim? What happened to my inheritance token? Regarding this god-killing Nadim, Renault was full of doubts, and Jason and others also listened attentively. God-killer Nadim, the rumbling voice, came faintly, as if it was lost in memories. There was no sound. After a while, it sounded again, that's my master. Master? Renault, there was a trace of doubt in his eyes, I want to know the deeds of this god-killing Nadim. Why are these ruins left here? What happened to this so-called inheritor? Since then, Renault has obtained the so-called killing of gods. After inheriting the inheritance from God Nadim, he only practiced in the metal space every day, comprehending the 9 basic techniques of the metal spiritual master's control, but he didn't know anything else. Inheritor, these things are not what you should know now, because you have only accepted the inheritance from the master, but have not completely received the inheritance. What you need to do now is to practice well and improve your strength as soon as possible. When you have completely mastered the 9 basic secret techniques of controlling the metal spiritual master, the moment you are promoted to spiritual god is the time when you truly receive the master's inheritance. Okay, you all can leave. Don't worry about the person from before who is in the territory of chaos. I can protect you within the range, but outside, you have to take care of yourself. After the words fell, the rumbling sound completely dissipated. Your Excellency, Renault wanted to say something else, but the owner of the voice never appeared again, and Jason, who originally had a lot of doubts in his heart that he wanted to answer, could only put these doubts aside. He kept it in his heart, but he also knew that the other party didn't even answer his father's questions, and he probably wouldn't answer his own questions either. Let's go. With the promise of the temple guardian, Jason and the others exhaled in their hearts, and then flew up one by one and left the Palace of Death. When Jason and the others left the Palace of Death and flew towards the territory of chaos. In the deepest part of the cloud swamp, for an unknown number of miles, in an unknown cave, in a dark cave, a pair of golden eyes were looking calmly at the disappearing figures of Jason and others. The talent of the master's inheritor can only be considered as acceptable. In 7 years, he has advanced from the 7th level intermediate imperial spiritual master to the 8th level intermediate imperial spiritual master. The basic control secret method of the gold spiritual master has also mastered the 6th level sword world. Not slow, but not fast either. I don't know if this Renault can completely get the master's inheritance. A low voice buzzed in the cave. But the black-haired boy named Jason is really surprising. He was the one who absorbed the master's golden spirit beads in the first place, but this time, I actually felt the aura of the earth spirit beads and the wood spirit beads in his body as well. The golden pupils were filled with inexplicable shock. The 5 elements spiritual beads were the treasures of that great lord back then. Only the spiritual gods of each department can use them. Otherwise, even a 9th-level Holy Spirit Master who wants to control the 5 elements spiritual beads will definitely be trapped by the 5 elements spiritual beads. The huge energy contained in it exploded in an instant. Back then, when this kid absorbed the golden spirit bead, I thought it was just an accident, but I didn't expect that he had already collected 3 types of 5-element spirit beads. If he really the spiritual god who gathered the 5-element spiritual pearls and then advanced to the 10th level said he knew that the 5-element spiritual pearls were powerful. Just thinking about it made him feel terrible in his heart. When this kid came to Jintong Hall, he was only a 4th-level low-level heavenly spiritual master. I didn't expect that in just 7 years, he would be promoted to an 8th-level low-level imperial spiritual master. Such talent is simply shocking. And this kid who has absorbed the golden spirit pearl is also extremely strong in understanding the laws of the metal system. Unfortunately, his attributes are too mixed. Otherwise, if he is allowed to become the inheritor of the master, he may be able to achieve the goals set by the master. It's a pity there was a strong regret in the sonorous and determined voice. But really speaking, this black-haired boy is very similar to the adult back then, possessing the 5 elements of spiritual power. In the spiritual medicine school, his attainments are not weak. He even collected 3 of the Lord's 5-element spiritual beads. It's really too similar. It's a pity, the Lord, his voice, gradually weakened. There was endless emotion in the golden pupils, and then they closed quietly and disappeared into the darkness. Outside the cloud swamp. This is the sky outside the territory of chaos. It is a clear sky, and the scorching sunshine is burning from the sky. It spread down, making the air hot and distorted. Suddenly, the originally endless void suddenly began to wave. At the same time, a black figure slowly appeared in the sky. Pfft. As soon as this figure appeared in the sky, a mouthful of blood spurted out from his mouth. His face was pale, and a trace of blood slipped from the corner of his mouth. His deep eyes were full of horror. This person is exactly the Lord of Sin City. Scott, the Lord of Sin, has just escaped from the depths of the cloud swamp and the territory of chaos. It's terrible, it's really terrible. How can there be such a powerful existence in the depths of this cloud swamp? Scott's eyes were red, he said with disbelief and hatred in his mouth. He looked down at his chest. Where the giant golden claw was bombarded, the blood has not stopped until now. A huge wound clearly appeared there, making Scott tremble uncontrollably. As the City Lord of Sin City, one of the 9 major forces in the mainland, he has never encountered any kind of enemy in his life, but this is the first time he has seen such a ravaged scene. Thinking back to the scene that looked like a dragon probing its claws, he one blow, until now. Scott's heart was still full of fear. He turned his head and glanced at the depths of the cloud swamp and the location of the chaos territory, with a trace of fear in his eyes. I didn't expect that here. There is such a terrifying existence lurking in the cloud swamp. I have been in the southern part of the continent for so many years, but I have never heard of it. It's really scary. The 7 forbidden places on the mainland. Sure enough, each of them is not a good place. Such a serious injury, I'm afraid it won't be possible to fully recover in less than a year and a half. He looked at the mist swamp with fear in his heart. Scott's figure blurred quietly and disappeared in an instant. Above the sky, he was injured by the powerful presence in the cloud swamp. He would never dare to come to the chaos territory and the cloud swamp again. When Scott, the Lord of Sin, seemed to be fleeing and returned to Sin City, Jason and others who came out of the Palace of Death returned to the City of Chaos in the evening under full speed. Everyone gained a lot from this trip to the Palace of Death. As soon as he returned to the City of Chaos, Wayne concentrated on studying his mid-level spiritual weapon of that day, the Dream Spirit, and Archimedes. He also went directly back to his room and began to practice the skills he had obtained. Luo Kuan naturally studied the spiritual skills that fit his own constitution. Seeing everyone busy with their own things, Jason naturally also not idle. He had just been promoted to the 8th level low-level Emperor Spiritual Master, and he started practicing alone in the mansion. There is a huge difference between the 8th level Imperial Spiritual Master and the 7th level Imperial Spiritual Master. The 7th level Imperial Spiritual Master is just a spiritual element that blends into the world, while the 8th level Imperial Spiritual Master is a complete spiritual master. Controlling the spiritual elements between heaven and earth is a completely different concept. The gap cannot be calculated based on reason. In the past few days, in order to increase the strength of the Chaos territory as quickly as possible, Jason, who had just been promoted to the 8th level low-level Emperor Spiritual Master, did not study the changes in his promotion to the 8th level Emperor Spiritual Master. He got caught up in the preparation and prepared several 8th level Emperor level elixirs and more than a dozen 7th level Emperor elixirs. Now, he has received the promise from the mysterious Temple Guardian to relieve the crisis in the territory of chaos. He also puts his mind on his own strength. The first thing Jason studied was the 8th level elemental barrier. The most obvious sign of an 8th level Imperial Spiritual Master is the elemental barrier. After each spiritual master is promoted to the 8th level Imperial Spiritual Master, according to the characteristics of his own attributes, he can control one element of his own attributes and form an elemental barrier that is most suitable for his battle. For Jason, who has a golden spirit bead and can release gold elemental enchantments at the 4th level Heavenly Spirit Master level, elemental enchantments are not a very unfamiliar thing, but when Jason really advances to the 8th level Imperial Spiritual Master, research when I created the elemental barrier, I still couldn't help but have a headache. Normal spiritual masters, after being promoted to the 8th level Imperial Spiritual Master, can naturally release the 8th level elemental barrier, but Jason can't. He has mixed elements. There is simply no way for the elements in his body to reach a balance. It is true that his elemental attributes are too complex. Originally, Jason, who practiced the spiritual god art, had all attributes simulated by the spiritual god art. But when he took the 5 elements reincarnation potion and advanced to the 7th level of the Imperial Spiritual Master, except for the essence of the spiritual god technique, he seemed to have truly become a 5-element spiritual master. In order to be able to control his own elements and achieve a balanced state, Jason plunged into practice in the Kongsi family's mansion. Jason sat quietly in the yard, with the 5 elements of spiritual power like a long river. Continuously swallowing, washing into his body, the 5-color light continued to bloom on his body, making him look like a god. Shwa. Suddenly, Jason's closed eyes suddenly opened, and a 5-color divine light bloomed from his eyes. He suddenly stood up, and an inexplicable aura rose from him, and continued to rise. Buzz. A 5-color light instantly dispersed from Jason's body and enveloped the entire courtyard. The courtyard, which was originally filled with colorful 5-element spiritual power, suddenly became violent. The 5-element elements in the sky continued to boil and condense together. They are blended together and condensed into shape. Buzzing, streaks of colorful spiritual power, like silk and satin, are constantly squeezing, and different attributes repel each other. The powerful repulsion made Jason try his best, but still feel the burst of energy. The formation was strenuous. Gather it for me. Jason roared, relying on his understanding of the law of the 5 elements to forcefully condense these 5 spiritual elements with different attributes together. 5-color divine light bloomed from the surface of Jason's body, connecting a large number of 5 elements. For a time, colorful spiritual power rivers appeared over the courtyard of the Kongsi family mansion. Under Jason's integration, you wanted to condense into one. Pung. However, at the moment when the 5-color barrier was about to take shape, the entire void suddenly collapsed, and thousands of 5-color rays of light suddenly collapsed and turned into 5 elements of spiritual power elements that filled the sky and dissipated in the air. It was 6 o'clock, this time it was only 1 o'clock, but it still failed in the end. Why did it fail? Jason frowned, thinking about his previous mistakes, and then, after pondering for a moment, he tried to cast the elemental enchantment again. Elemental enchantment, Pung. Elemental enchantment, Pung. Elemental enchantment, Pung. The collapse again and again did not make Jason depressed but continued to adjust and try. Gradually Jason was completely immersed in it. He did not feel pain, but time and time again my understanding has been sublimated in every realization and thinking, and my body and mind feel extremely happy. Sometimes I will experiment several times in a row, and sometimes I will be immersed in the law for a long time without trying it once. In this way, as time goes by, days passed, and finally elemental enchantment, up. Jason, who had been in seclusion for 5 days in the yard to cast the elemental enchantment, stood up again and cast the elemental enchantment, freeze. Countless 5-color, spiritual light burst out from Jason's body. Thousands of 5-color divine light appeared around the entire mansion courtyard. They quickly gathered and condensed together to form a 5-color spiritual light. Force space. At this moment, the colorful rays of light rendered the entire yard colorful, like a fairyland on earth. In the yard, Jason's mouth naturally showed a smile when he saw this scene. The 5 elements element barrier was finally successful.